Well, hallelujah. Thank you for most of you got back. You found it on the other page, and we were trying to tell you that if we lost it on the Holy Spirit Encounter page, that it was going to go to my private page, and most of you have found it there. So if you were to lose it again, you'll go to Facebook. We're trying to make sure that we give you the direct directions on where it is on Facebook, but you should be able to look under Jewel Newman if you search YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, if we lose it again on Facebook and you go to YouTube, I think if you search under my name, that it should come up and show it live. And we're going to make sure of that, and we'll come back and tell you in just a little bit. But, just like Holly said earlier, when the enemy knows that he's getting to the place to where he's been defeated, then he always wants, that's when he wraps up his greatest things. And he's tried to do this to this because this has been so powerful, and so many people have been blessed, and people have been healed, and people have been set free just since we've been doing this now for almost 4 weeks. And so we just want to give God all the glory today. Satan loses, Jesus wins. And we're going to just continue worshiping, and we'll move and go forward.
Under James. So it's on your page, but it's under James Haynes.
Okay, and so they just told me that if you look on YouTube, that if you don't find it under my name, you may be able to find it under James Ammons. And so you'll just have to look. But anyway, right now let's just praise and worship, and let's just see what the Holy Spirit wants to do.
So, according to studies, there's one food that
I can't do anything about it.
Levels by 50.
I can't have to wait for that. I have to wait for that to go away.
Waking up to a new sunrise, looking back from the other side. I can see now with open eyes, darkest water and deepest pain. I wouldn't trade it for anything, 'cause my brokenness brought me you, and these wounds are a story you'll use. So I'm thankful for the scars, 'cause without them I wouldn't know your heart, and I know they'll always tell of who you are. So forever I
guys, I want us to, after hearing that song, I want us to go ahead and take communion. And I've read a mainstream book and within the Christian faith, and it's called Are You a Fan or Are You a Follower? So I don't know if any of you guys read that book years ago. But one thing it talks about, that if you're a fan, you don't really talk about your wounds that turn to scars. You know, the fans just put on the mask and just, they always present the pretty side. But if you're a true follower, then we're the ones that will share our wounds and will share our scars with others around us, and when we meet people who are hurting. And it goes right in line with, tomorrow, a week ago, was Good Friday, and Christ was nailed to the cross. And through that scourging and beating and whipping and just a brutal, just all out, attack on him, he has scars. And so what I want us to do, and I think it, and I'm going to give a shout out, and many of you may have done it, the way Facebook works, you don't always see everyone's responses. You only see certain ones on certain tablets and phones. But Denise, you did. You made a comment. I am so thankful for my scars. And so the word says that we're one with Christ, and we're called to suffer with him. And it's in the darkness, it's in the valleys, it's in the desert that we get to see Jesus Christ for who he is, that we truly experience the true living God when we're in those desperate moments of darkness, despair, desert, in the wilderness, and we could just list all those out. So why don't we take the bread that was broken just for us, just for me, just for you, and let's thank him. Let's thank him for every wound, for every scar, and that our scars today are beautiful. They're beautiful, not only to him and to others, that it's part of our testimony, but they're beautiful to us, and we don't have to cover those scars up. So his body was broken, and his blood was shed. And it's through this that makes a scar. So let's take it. But take a moment and thank him. Call it out. Thank him for a scar. Your scars. Father, I thank you. I thank you. Yeah, I thank you. I thank you that the hurt that I went through as a teenager, that I became pregnant as a teenager. I thank you. I thank you for that wounding. I thank you for the abuse that I went through. I thank you for walking me through those divorces. I thank you for all my craziness and mistakes that I made. I thank you. And that list goes on and on.
Make me a house, make me a house of prayer. Oh, make me a house, make me a house of prayer, a house of prayer. Why call too many? What I wanted. house of prayer. Oh, make me a house, make me a house of prayer, a house of prayer.
Lord, make me a house. Make me a house of prayer. Lord, make me a house. Make me a house of prayer. A house of prayer.
May the fire on my altar never burn out. The fire on my altar never burn out. May the fire on my altar never burn out. Make me a house of prayer.
May the fire on my altar never burn out. Fire on my altar never burn out. May the fire on my altar never burn out. Make me a house of prayer. Make me a house. Make me a house of prayer.
I wanna see your face. See your face, oh Lord.
Make me a house of prayer. Fire on my altar never burn out. Fire on my altar never burn out. May the fire on my altar never burn out. Make me a house of prayer. Make me a house.
Oh, make me
A house of prayer.
I of prayer. May the fire on my altar never burn out. The fire on my altar never burn out. May the fire on my altar never burn out. May it be a house of prayer.
And so, will He make you a house of prayer? As you've been under this time of staying in your house and everyone being close together as a family, we hope that you've taken this time to pray, that you've taken this time to seek out the Lord, that your house has truly been a house of prayer, and it will continue, because we're not going back to normal. You know, we teach that all the time. It's very hard to deliver anyone from normal. And so we're not going to go back to the normal. Things are going to change. There has been a shift. And we'll talk about that shift as we go along in the next few weeks. But there has been a shift. Not only, and so we'll end up tonight in prayer, but before we go, I just want to remind you, tomorrow is double portion Friday. We want you to join us at 7:25 if you can, and get on, and we'll try to get some of these glitches worked out. But join us tomorrow night for double portion Friday. Holly has been telling you all week, we're going to make a real special announcement tomorrow night concerning Holy Spirit Encounter that we're excited about, and Tom Linder is excited about, and we just can't wait to share that with you. But until then, Lord, I just pray for your people. Bless them.
Yeah.
Let them sleep, Lord. You and grown closer to you just through this time. That what the enemy meant to try to destroy people and try to knock people down, you have now built them up, lifted them up, and you're moving them forward in a greater way, in a greater measure than ever before. And so we just say thank you, Lord, for that. We look forward for what you're going to do tomorrow night in this double portion. And we're glad that we could be here with you tonight with all of these people. Lord, these have been faithful people seeking you out and searching you out. And you said, I want to say good night. We look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Hunter always wants to come and let you guys know that he's here in the middle of the praise and worship. And so we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
I'll make y'all laugh. Only one time was he let's just call it a preacher's pup, because he refused to come into the room with us. But he's been a faithful little boy every night. But one night he kind of just pouted. So anyway, we love you guys. Y'all have a blessed night, and we'll see you soon.